What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of The Bottom Line View, here to give you the 5 losers of the NFL free agency in 2017. I'm going to give you their departures, their ads, their re-signings. I'm going to give you the analysis of why I think these are the 5 biggest losers of the NFL free agency in 2017. At number 5 for the losers, I have the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are a loser this season.
You loser.
Because all they have done is gotten older. You look at the players that they have added this offseason. Sure, they've replaced 2 receivers in Ted Ginn and Philly Brown, going to the Saints and the Bills, respectively, with Russell Shepard and Charles Johnson of the Buccaneers and the Minnesota Vikings. Now, those are 2 complementary ads and need ads. But then we move on from that aspect. They get rid of Mike Tolbert. They no longer have a fullback, and I know Mike Tolbert wasn't exactly playing up to his expectations in Carolina. And then you trade Coney Ealy. Okay, you want to move up in the draft. Let's trade Coney Ealy and let's get back, 8 spots in the draft? That trade made no sense. He's still a young player. He's still a young player that can contribute in your pass rush. He was almost the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 50, and you go ahead and you trade him to the New England Patriots. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Hey, let's replace Coney Ealy with the old man Julius Peppers. I think that's going to be great. Our team is definitely worth, adding a Julius Peppers to when we're going all the way to the Super Bowl. I understand that you need to add and you need to fill your cap. But with the Carolina Panthers, what was the need of signing Julius Peppers other than that he played with the team before? The same for Captain Munnerlyn. I understand that you needed a cornerback, but why don't you try and let your younger players play? You're not going to be a great team this year. You're not going to win the Super Bowl. Now, Captain Munnerlyn is going to take away from one of these younger players that you could potentially draft, you could potentially have already on your roster. I understand that you needed a corner. Again, I understand that. But Captain Munnerlyn is getting up there in age, and it just doesn't make sense to sign him or Julius Peppers, 2 guys that are going to be retiring pretty soon and are not going to have much longevity on your team. Mike Ramirez, you let go of him, and then what do? You sign Matt Khalil to an outstandingly ridiculous contract. Matt Khalil has never been a great tackle in the league. Did you watch the Minnesota Vikings offensive line last year? They were arguably the worst offensive line, and that means they were arguably even worse than the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. Matt Khalil has been awful as a Minnesota Viking, and now you sign him to a long-term contract to play for your Carolina Panthers. And again, this is a need. You needed a tackle to block for Cam Newton. He didn't have enough time last year. He didn't have enough time to throw deep down the field, and he was getting hit and sacked continuously. So I understand why you let go of Mike Ramirez. But is Matt Khalil really going to be the solution here? I don't think so. Mike Adams at the safety position, I think this is your best pickup. He's a solid player. He was a Pro Bowler a couple years ago for the Indianapolis Colts. Your safety and your secondary needed an addition, and he came at a low cost. I understand that. He is old once again, so that is somewhat of a minus, but Mike Adams is a solid player nevertheless. A.J. Klein, you let go of A.J. Klein. Understandably so. You have Thomas Davis, you have Luke Kuechly, and you have Shaq Thompson. The only problem with that is Luke Kuechly is hurt, and you don't really know how much he's going to be playing in the future because he actually contemplated retirement last season. And then you have Thomas Davis, who's had 4 ACL injuries, and he's 37 years old. Why are you not going to try and maintain a player that was pretty solid while Luke Kuechly was on the bench last year, while he was on the IR? Why wouldn't you try and retain A.J. Klein and, have him back on your team? This is a need. I know that the linebacker position for Carolina is pretty solid at the moment, but you have to look long-term. And the only long-term linebacker that is currently on the Panthers for certain is Shaq Thompson. I understand that Luke Kuechly is a young player, but very much like Rob Gronkowski and J.J. Watt, we don't know how much longer these players are going to be playing. So for me, the Carolina Panthers at number 5 come in as losers.
You loser.
Because they upgraded their team unnecessarily with old players, and they didn't retain some pretty decent players that have played well for them and are young players. Now, let's go to number 4 with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals have tried to make the most of what they have, but really, it is a loss.
You loser.
You look at their key losses this offseason. They lost Tony Jefferson, one of the best safeties in the NFL last season. He can play strong safety. He can play free safety. He's even played a little bit of corner. Hell, he can even play linebacker. So Tony Jefferson is a very good safety. You don't sign him. You lose him in the sweepstakes to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, you would hope to retain Calais Campbell, right? No, he's gone too. He's gone to Jacksonville. These are 2 absolutely massive losses for the Arizona Cardinals, and they will not recover defensively. You did retain Chandler Jones, and you spent the entire bank on him, understandably, but you lost Calais Campbell, who I would argue was the better player in this instance. You did add a couple of players to try and fit in your system. You brought back Carlos Dansby into the mix. You brought Jarvis Jones, a bust basically from the Pittsburgh Steelers, to try and add another pass rusher. You brought in DJ Swearinger to try and replace Tony Jefferson. You brought in Antoine Bethea to try and help at the safety position. You brought in Phil Dawson, which I thought was a good move. He is older and he is soon going to retire, but your kicker was absolutely terrible last year, and I understand this move. But then you also let go of Carl Watford, your right tackle. You let go of Alex Okafor. You let go of Darren Fells. You let go of Marcus Cooper, which weren't big losses in any shape or form, maybe other than Carl Watford, but they didn't necessarily help your cause. The 2 big losses of Tony Jefferson and Calais Campbell just strike me, and to me, they just scream at me and say the Arizona Cardinals, if they weren't going backward last year, are going backward even further this year. At number 3, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals don't know what the heck they're doing. Okay, so they have Andy Dalton. They had a very solid core team. They have AJ Green. They have 2 good running backs. They have Tyler Eifert. But now you let go of your 2 best offensive linemen. One of the best guards in the NFL, and Kevin Zeitler, he is gone. You let go of Andrew Whitworth, who got a big contract, and Zeitler did as well, but you let them both go. You also let go of one of the fan base's darlings and Rex Burkhead, who a lot of your fans have argued that he actually outplayed Jeremy Hill last season. Carlos Dansby was a very solid linebacker for you. He went back home in Arizona. DeMonte Pecco went to better pastures in Denver. Marcus Hunt, who was your best special teams player, is gone as well. You do re-sign Dre Kirkpatrick, who is your number 1 priority, and I don't really know why. Kirkpatrick has only played well in 1 season, and you let go of Kevin Zeitler, who should be much more important to your franchise. I don't understand why your guard, one of the premier guards in the NFL, is not more important than Dre Kirkpatrick. Sure, Kirkpatrick is a cornerback, but he's already around 28, 29 years old, and he's only had 1 legitimate good season. You re-sign Brandon LaFell to help with your wide receiver core. You re-sign Eric Winston to play tackle. And then you add Ben Wickery, who was literally cut from the Carolina Panthers, arguably the worst secondary in the NFL last season. And Andre Smith, who you bring back, who he's been terrible since he left your franchise. So for me, the Bengals have done nothing right other than maybe signing Dre Kirkpatrick. But considering that they could have had Kevin Zeitler instead of Dre Kirkpatrick, I would have let go of the cornerback. The Cincinnati Bengals, again, have done nothing right, and they deserve the number 3 position. At number 2, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys fans, don't hate. It's true. The Dallas Cowboys are losers of the free agency.
You loser.
Let's just look at what they've done this offseason. Okay, so they've let Doug Free retire. They've let J.J. Wilcox go through the door. They've let Jack Crawford go through the door. They've let Ronald Leary leave. They let Terrell McClain leave. They let Barry Church leave. They let Morris Claiborne leave. They let Brandon Carr leave. And they let Lance Dunbar leave. Now, what have they added? They've had Stephen Paella, if that's how you say his name, and Nolan Carroll. Nolan Carroll. One of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL. And people think that Brandon Carr is bad. Nolan Carroll is worse. What did they do in terms of re-signings? Jonathan Cooper, a depth guy. Terrence Williams, Sure, good re-signing, cheap. Bryce Butler, decent re-signing, cheap. David Irving, very good re-signing. Darren McFadden. Why? Why do you need Darren McFadden? You have like 4 running backs. Why do you need Darren McFadden? Your losses are going to hurt. The Dallas Cowboys franchise and fans don't realize that they went basically unscathed when it came from injuries last season. They had no injuries on the offensive line basically at all. And when they did, Ron O'Leary stepped in and was fantastic for them, but they let him go through the door. And they basically had no injuries on offense last year. What if that happens? What if your corners start going down? Who's playing corner? Who's playing safety for the Cowboys? Their biggest weakness was that they couldn't get to the passer and they couldn't cover anybody. And what did? They let go of 2 of their top corners. They let go of 2 of their 3 safeties. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The Cowboys are a few pieces away from making the Super Bowl, from winning the Super Bowl, and yet they sit and they stay conservative and they let their depth players walk through the door. To me, this makes no sense. To me, Tony Romo was a huge distraction to this franchise. And to me, Jerry Jones needs to let go of Tony Romo, move on from that situation, and look around at your team. What do we need? We need a pass rusher. We need some depth on the offensive line now. We might need a right tackle because Doug Free retired. We might need some corners because what do we have? I mean, we have Skandrick. What do we have at corner right now? So that's a huge question for the Cowboys. And what do we have at safety as well? I know that there is the draft, guys, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but you lost a lot of depth in free agency. That's why the Cowboys are at number 2. At number 1, I have the Green Bay Packers. Now, a lot of people are going to be pissed off at me because I know that a lot of Packers fans are subscribed to the channel. And I'm not hating on the Packers, guys. I know I'm a Patriots fan. I know that people hate on me because I'm a Patriots fan. I'm not hating on the Packers. I'm not hating on the Packers because they got Martellus Bennett. Cool. Martellus Bennett went somewhere else. He got his money. My problem is the Green Bay Packers association and their coaching and everything around Aaron Rodgers has been a complete mess. You're absolutely wasting, in my opinion, the most talented quarterback of all time. Now, I think Tom Brady's the greatest, and there's other players that are greater in terms of their career than Aaron Rodgers. But if you look at Aaron Rodgers, he's probably the most talented quarterback ever. His arm, his legs, the combination of his mind, his arm, and his legs. He's in his prime. He has 2 to 3 years left of that ridiculous 50-yard throw from the right side of the pocket under duress throw. He's not going to do that for much longer. He isn't one of these guys that relies on his mind and, like a Tom Brady who can do it because he was never physically gifted. As for Aaron Rodgers, he is more of a John Elway where once his arm and stuff goes, he's not going to be as great. So what do you do in Green Bay? You add a couple tight ends and you let go of part of your awesome offensive line last year in TJ Lang and JC Treader at center, and you let go of Julius Peppers, who could help you in the pass rushing department, who did help you when he was a Packer. You let go of Eddie Lacy, who I'm not a huge fan of, but still, you don't have a running back. And you let of Dayton Jones, who I think a lot of people don't realize how good he is. So you let go of all these players, and I didn't even mention you let go of your second best secondary member in Micah Hyde, in my opinion. He's right up there for your secondary. If he's not second, he's third. So, you have Clinton Dix, you have probably Micah Hyde and Morgan Burnett. All your safeties are your best players in your secondary because we all know you don't have cornerbacks. And Micah Hyde was playing corner for you when you needed him to. So you let him go. You let 2 of your offensive linemen go. You let probably your second best pass rusher go. You let go of your running back, who is your best running back over the past 3 years. I know that you have Ty Montgomery, but he's not going to be a lead back consistently. And you let go of one of your underrated defensive linemen for what? You sign Davon House back at corner, and you sign Martellus Bennett, who's not that much better than Jared Cook. By the way, I didn't even talk about how Jared Cook is gone. So Jared Cook is gone. And what do you upgrade? Yeah, sure, you upgrade a little bit with Martellus Bennett. He can block better. But he isn't really that much of a more of a threat than Jared Cook in the passing game. He just is not. He's bigger, he's stronger, but he's not as fast, he's not as quick. Sure, he's a little bit better in terms of route running and stuff, and he'll probably help you in the red zone. But you need guys to block for Aaron Rodgers in order for Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball to Martellus Bennett. So that's my problem with the situation with the Packers. They let go a lot of players, and they didn't really look at the free agency and say, what do we need to help Aaron Rodgers to win this Super Bowl? Clearly, we need a pass rusher. Clearly, we need a secondary. Clearly, we need maybe one or two more threats, whether that's a running back or a tight end or a receiver, whatever it is. And the Packers have totally ignored that, minus the fact that they went out and got Martellus Bennett to essentially replace Jared Cook, who, by the way, wasn't that bad last season. So for me, the Green Bay Packers absolutely sucked this offseason. And if I was a Packers GM, if I was a Packers, coach, owner, fan, I would be disappointed. And I would definitely be disappointed if I was Aaron Rodgers. So those are the 5 biggest losers of the NFL free agency in 2017. Let me know who you guys think are the 5 biggest losers in free agency this season in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, Gronk spike that like button and subscribe for more NFL content. It's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. Peace out.